Oh my god, they actually did it. High Guardian Spice created not one, but 2 watchable episodes. It only took them 2/3 of their entire run, but they actually pulled it off. So, are episodes 8 and 9 actually any good? Well, not really, but there is good stuff in them. These episodes are a great way to learn the difference between animation and aesthetics. This is the Halloween episode, and as such, we're able to see how the town of Lygarth changes for the season, and it's quite an aesthetically pleasing episode in that regard, for the most part. Full disclosure, many of my compliments will be backhanded. Much of this episode is 2 steps forward when you needed 3 steps to avoid the runaway train. Both of these episodes really go hard into the Halloween vibe. They're bathed with a warm orange light that gives off a festive feeling that's captured quite nicely. And in stills, the episode seems quite technically impressive. There is a lot of artistry here, and they're the most visually distinct episodes of the entire lot. The problems start when the episode starts moving, because, it doesn't move. This isn't a still image. In pretty much every shot, every prolonged shot, there are people in the background that are just static, not moving at all. And this feels like a horribly rookie mistake. It's like someone came up with a lot of different costume designs that they wanted to showcase, but they didn't realize that to actually have them in the episode, they would need to have the characters wear them actually move. So for many of these characters, they look like they were just pasted onto the screen. This is actually a larger problem than you might imagine, because the plot point of this episode is everyone turns into stone, so they move exactly as much before and after. Granted, it's still a step up from the previous episode because these characters aren't hideously deformed, but it is still distracting. Speaking of distraction, from what I can tell, this is the only episode that uses CGI, and they use it in exactly one place. For this animatronic thing. It is the only thing that is obviously different, so it sticks out like a sore thumb, even though it's supposed to be in the background. And it's a double problem because they try to get into as many shots as possible. And if that's not enough, this animatronic statue makes this pinging noise that constantly interrupts the dialogue.
Wow, that looks like
the dauntless crest of the House of Anguis.
What? Since when do you study history?
Since it's about—
I swear I've stared at this thing for hours, wondering why anyone thought it was a good idea. Because this is the Halloween episode, that means that everyone gets to be in costume, and I have to admit, many of these costumes are creative. Sage's is the best costume, not because it's the best technically or most interesting. Honestly, I can't even tell what Sage is supposed to be. She's called a bird at one point, so we'll go with that. However, the costume is actually unique. It improves her design with her color palette, and it makes her stand out from all the other generic fantasy mages. If you ask me, this should have been her default costume. In many cases, the costume choices are the only personality that a lot of these characters get. Time is dressed as a goofy werewolf, and the fact that she even puts it on, even if reluctantly, actually informs her character beyond Archer who lives in the woods. Not everyone is so lucky though. Parsley. She dresses up as the blacksmith, because as we all know, there is nothing in a dwarf's head other than being a smithy. Their entire life revolves around the forge and literally nothing else. However, there are some endearing bits. Aloe and Caraway apparently accidentally wear the same thing every year. It's a human moment, and one of the few that both of them get throughout the entire series. I don't know if I'd call it funny, but I do consider it endearing. It's a little extra flavor that a series this bland desperately needed. Honestly, more stuff like this, please.
How do you guys and Professor Bunny know each other?
Oh, we
go to the same parties.
Also, these episodes are actually really trying to take advantage of the mature warning tag. We've got a real swear for once. A real fucking swear. We've also got mentions of alcohol and a good dose of action and blood. We might even be approaching PG-13 here. I know, it sounds crazy. I don't know if we're actually at PG-13, but we're well on our way. These episodes also have this sequence where 2 characters are in a virtual reality video game, and they're drawn in a more chibi style. Honestly, it looks better than most of the rest of the series because it's visually cohesive. If they went for this 100% of the show, High Guardian Spice might actually look a lot better, to be honest. That being said, I'm not a fan of the video game's existence in general, because once again, it is so anachronistic. And it's more painfully so than something like the beignets. Even more so than Anaïs's design. Speaking of that, once again, I know what they were going for with Anaïs's design, but her clothing choice really doesn't feel like it even belongs in the show. Honestly, if you ask me, in their house, you can see a wedding photo with her in a more fanciful suit. And, as I said with Sage, I wish that that was her default design. It fits both her personality and the world that she inhabits. Speaking of not fitting in this world though, on episode 8, out of 12, we're introduced to the main villain of the series, Olive the Catgirl and, Smokeface. Yeah, one of the big villains of the series is called Smokeface. Smoke face. Anyway, all of it was a mistake.
At least you're not dressed as cats. I've seen a million here.
Every single person who I've talked to who has seen her has had the exact same reaction. Olive being a generic cat girl makes High Guardian Spice look more and more like generic anime. It's a cliche of the medium, and it really does feel like the only reason that a cat girl is here is because anime sometimes has cat girls. To be as fair as I can, cats have kind of been a thing throughout the entire series. Nappy Cat is a character, but they haven't been like the main thing. It also doesn't help that Olive's design is just so painfully generic. A good character design should inform a character's personality. It should tell the audience things without them even having to say anything. Does this here tell you anything other than cat girl who acts like all other cat girls in anime? Besides, maybe the fact that she can do magic. Even beyond that, I don't think that she fits in this world very well with what's established. By episode 8, we should have at least heard of other cat people. At least seen one of them among the students. Or at least have the concept be better established. But no, we're talking about the Fountain of Youth. And honestly, that's one of the biggest problems with all of this. High Guardian Spice establishes concepts almost at random and doesn't follow them through. It becomes painfully obvious the more you watch, and in all honesty, it's quite disappointing, especially in these 2 episodes. Episode 3, Transformations, established transformation magic. You can use new magic to change your form. Episode 5 showcased that new magic can be used to do anything in your imagination. This episode showcases a cat girl transforming back and forth from a girl to a cat. Tell me, if you lived in a world like this, would you settle for wearing a mere costume on Halloween when you could just be anything that you wanted? People treat Nappy Cat like he blends in despite being a hulking cat beast, so I have to assume that someone somewhere is using transformation magic for a really cool costume, but that's not something that we see on screen. And honestly, as much as I like how this episode looks, not utilizing Halloween to its fullest fantasy potential in a world like this is just nothing more than a missed opportunity. Okay, this episode introduces spark spells. As Amaryllis puts it, they're D&D scrolls. Magic stored in the thing, use it, kaboom, everyone gets stoned at the party. I don't know why these things exist or why you would use them when quote-unquote new magic can do whatever the hell you want.
There are these little high-tech sparkles with ready-made spells inside. They're super easy to cast.
This new magic stuff? There is no cost. There is no cost. There is no cost. There is no cost.
This episode also introduces Cal properly. Cal's existence is to shame Snapdragon. This is Cal's only purpose in the entire series. He only exists to mock Snapdragon for being feminine. They try to portray him as a general asshole, but he's really only used against Snapdragon. As you can see, Snapdragon is dressed as a mermaid in this episode, and Cal tries to hit on them. And,
Wait, Snapdragon? You, dude, why are you dressed like a girl? This is messed up. You're messed up.
Don't be like Cal. No one likes Cal. Surprisingly enough, I think one of the bigger problems here is that I don't think that this series can write jerks well. When you get down to it, what's the difference between Cal and Aster? Cal maybe isn't a meathead, but beyond that, both of them are assholes with no depth, created for no other reason than, I guess, to make a social point. It really is kindergarten writing. There are jerks and assholes in the real world, obviously, but real world assholes are not this one-dimensional. Cal's not just a bad guy, he's a bad character. To the point where it's not even satisfying watching him get the tar beat out of him in a later episode because he just feels so fake and forced. In this episode, we also get introduced to Amaryllis. I know what you might be thinking. Hasn't Amaryllis been around since like episode 2? Well, there has been an Amaryllis since the beginning. However, the Amaryllis that I know has always been a complete asshole, constantly mocking and belittling everyone. You know, the classic example of the rich bitch trope. And in this episode, she definitely is like that quite a bit, but she's also the one person in the entire series who sticks by Snapdragon when they're mocked for being feminine. Seriously, to anyone else who's seen High Guardian Spice, think about it. Think of any other characters who are outright and uncontroversially supportive of Snapdragon. There is Caraway, which is a heavy discussion for another episode. And there's also Sage, who spent half an episode saying the most sexist shit possible, driving Snapdragon to an outrage. There's also this in this episode.
I brought you some pretzels.
Snapdragon?
Hey, Sage.
I don't know why I have to mention this, but apparently I do. Getting the hots for someone is not the same thing as being supportive of them. This might sound really off topic, but Amaryllis' behavior reminds me of something. A couple of years ago, there was a viral internet hoax. There was this series of tweets where J.K. Rowling wrote a fanfic about herself, in the world of Harry Potter, where she owned a potion shop and Draco Malfoy was the only character in the entire series to support trans rights. This was a hoax that spawned from the website Clickhole. J.K. Rowling never wrote this, and a lot of people who did spread the hoax originally have blocked their accounts or deleted the false information. But a lot of people believe this hoax, because it really does sound something like J.K. Rowling would say and do, doesn't it? Could you imagine if she wrote a series where the only person who supported trans rights, or even gender non-conforming behavior, was the person who was portrayed as a rich bitch asshole who enjoyed tormenting people from the very start? That'd be insane! I'm not saying that Amaryllis shouldn't be supportive of Snapdragon. I'm saying that she shouldn't be the only one, when our heroes have shown little other than hostility or indifference towards Snapdragon. Let me put it this way. The most supportive person towards Snapdragon in this entire world treats them like this.
Unfreeze them faster! And stand farther back!
Say please. You always order me around, but you never say please.
True, our heroes are assholes in general. Episode 8 really does explore the friendship between Sage and Rosemary. So, Sage is incredibly controlling. She comes up with this list of things for them to do without asking Rosemary, and then Sage gets pissed when Rosemary doesn't want to do them. That's the gist of it anyway. It's hard to get specifics because, this dialogue ain't great.
We don't need to be heroes today. We can just be kids.
Says the girl who wanted to hurl flaming axes instead of carving pumpkins.
When we were kids, you had fun just being around me. And you were never this annoying.
Bullshit. Sorry about that, I'm allergic to bullshit.
Rosemary, we always do what you want.
Which is why you guys spent the entirety of episode 4 shopping for a Terrasphere for Sage. Maybe I'd have a different reaction to this fight if either of the participants weren't horrible. To be fair, I think we're supposed to find both of them in the wrong, it's just really unpleasant. Remember the ending of the last episode, where they were all in this together? One episode later, it's hard to see how they're even friends. Most of this review has been about episode 8 because episode 9 is mostly just a conclusion. It's mostly just a fight scene, or trying to get into a fight scene. There's not much of a plot to speak of, just characters coming together and fighting Olive. And that might be why it's one of the best episodes of the series. With less writing, there's less writing problems. Of course, there's still animation problems. Rosemary descends from a roof like this. Yeah, that looks completely natural. Speaking of natural, this dialogue is, natural.
You turned my friend to stone. Not that you'd understand.
Yes, Olive no understand rock.
I never asked for this.
But when we do get into the actual action, it's actually pretty nice and fluid. It's another good fight scene. It's more than just sword swinging. The two characters are using the environment, playing underhanded when they can, and doing just about everything that they can do to survive. There's a lot of motion to it and good cinematic angles. It's a very well choreographed fight scene. They try to do a black and white thing that doesn't quite work. The silhouettes are too blocky, but points for trying. And once again, we get to see blood. And they finally learned how to actually animate blood! So Olive's thing is that she's working for some big bad magical business called the Triumvirate. And I can't tell you how much I hate this. Not the fact that a magical corporation is trying to kill the girls, that's fine. It's that you decide to call them the Triumvirate. So you've got one group of highly important people called the Triad, and you've got another big important group called the Triumvirate. So let me hit you with a small piece of writing advice. Completely for free. I'd feel ashamed otherwise because I learned this in 2nd grade. When you're writing a story, it's a bad idea to have 2 or more characters start with the same syllable sound, because it makes it very easy for your readers to confuse the two. You can have them theme similarly, but the audience should be able to differentiate them offhandedly, and easily. Like, imagine if you had a story with 2 main characters, Brendan and Brandon. That'd get confusing quickly, I'd imagine. It also makes it more trying for the writers, as yes, even they will get confused. And this goes doubly so for the actors.
I legitimately don't understand your confidence in this situation.
Fun fact, that's what I wrote to Crunchyroll when they greenlit this.
I'm not perfect. Neither are you. Ugh, that's what I've been trying to tell you about myself.
No. Rosemary, you've never had a bad thing to say about yourself throughout this entire 2-parter. You just kept calling Sage boring and blowing her off. I'm not judging on that front, I would have done that too, but that is what you've been doing. Speaking of perfect, Sage smashes the spark spell that causes the stoning. Fun fact, Amaryllis never told Sage that smashing the Terrasphere would reverse the spell.
Do you know how to undo the spell?
All magic can be reversed, but you need the original Terrasphere.
For all Sage knows, that could have screwed everyone. Yeah, while I can say that these two are the best episodes of High Guardian Spice, I don't think I could say that even they come up to being good episodes. Granted, I've seen far, far worse. And these two episodes are certainly watchable. There are good qualities to them. Like, we get to see that Amaryllis killed this bird, but at the same time this sad song is playing because this is supposed to be a sad, somber moment. Moments like that are great. And once again, the action is quite nicely done. We're just stuck with these characters, this writing, these ideas, this dialogue. The good qualities in this episode just deserve to be put in a better show. And, this is the top of the hill. 3 episodes remain, and none of them are gonna be this fun. Buckle your seatbelts, everyone.